Welcome to the Fraiday Labs podcast. Let's get started.
Well, guys, this is the second of this type of format. Ben and I jumped on one of these maybe a week and a half ago. The format is very casual, pretty much a brainstorm. We're going to talk through some ideas. It is not like your typical podcast. We have an expert here to talk about a specific subject and like everybody like hear about how smart we are. This is, we have ideas and we have things we're trying to figure out. And it's good to talk through those ideas with other people. And then hopefully in the process of talking it out and sharing some of these ideas that we learn something. And whether it sparks ideas for ourselves, for other people, whoever's tuning in, listening in. But by no means do I profess to be any type of subject matter expert on this topic. And I'm stoked to talk to you guys about it.
I get to profess that you're the subject matter expert. That's the cool part.
I wish that I could accept such a profession.
I have definitely learned things from both of you. So I know that you guys, I feel like they're trailblazing on this front. You got a thing or two that we can learn.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're being being modest. I would be true. I don't know what we're talking about. So,
you know, there is like,
there's two of us, Joel.
We're on this call right now, and we all happen to be coming from the marketing world. The lines between engineering and not just marketers, but all like knowledge workers, it is fading, blending. And especially when we're looking at the way that a lot of engineers approach development and engineering today is oftentimes, maybe we've talked about this, Ben, oftentimes engineers, you work on whatever like branch of your code you're working on and you submit your PR and you didn't review anything. The AI just like went to town, it did its work, and you're like, I trust it. I'm sure it's good. You submit your PR, it gets reviewed, goes to mainline code, and nobody reviewed it. Well, guess what? Us marketers and other, knowledge workers, we don't know how to review our PRs.
Just hoping for the best, right?
Yeah, we have AI trying to review our PRs for us. So we submit and then review and go to mainline code. You're coming from the engineers are like coming down from the top. We're coming in from the bottom, and we're kind of meeting somewhere in the middle. And I know a bunch of engineers would be like, how dare you, sir? But it is like there is a kind of a convergence happening. And to be fair and to be respectful to my engineer friends, there's no way I could do what you guys do to your level. And so I'm not by any means. The reason I'm bringing this up is like, as we're talking about expertise, and like definitely I am not at the level as experts and engineers who know exactly what's going on and happening on the back end. And anyhow, so I'm new to this, but I've got some ideas that I'm trying to work through. Specifically right now, I'm working with my team at StackAdapt with Becky, my boss, Becky and Chris, and we've come across, some challenges that were, roadblocks that we're trying to kind of get over. And I want to share some ideas with you guys, open it up for discussion, hear your thoughts, and maybe you can help me unlock a couple of things. So just starting off on the concept of building a harness. And if you're not familiar with what a harness is, it's essentially everything that's wrapped around a model, around an LLM. This is essentially it's just files and folders, right? But this is your skills, your, any type of like plugins, your instructions, everything that guides your AI to do what it does. When we're looking at, the thing is like when we stepping back for a second on harness building, all of us using AI, we are all building our own harness without even knowing it, right? whatever instructions and memory and whatever guidance that we're giving to it, whatever skills that we're building and wrapping around our models, whatever we're choosing to use, we are building that harness. And the challenge is, the problem is, and this is why I believe most people fail with AI to get significant output, is because one, it's not intentional. They don't know what they're building and how it's being built. Speaking of intentionality, there's no like real planning, there's no architecture, there's no design around the harness and how it's built. And so most people are building their harness around their individual use, and they also have no idea what's going on, how to build it in a way that they will get like good output. And as I've been diving deep, like I've been consuming so much content around the second brain and AI OS systems and harnesses and all of these things. And what I'm struggling to find, and I hope to discuss this today with you guys, is how different types of context are organized. And then how do you best, like the best practices of using your claude.md or your agent.md files to act as a map, a roadmap, or a router to make sure that your AI is only going to get and fetch the right information at the right time for the right use cases. Because when you look at how much context there is to pull in, right? We're talking about Slack messages and email and text and phone calls and customer calls and company documentation, and like there's personal context and there's company context and there's team context and there's context everywhere. And it's like, how do you route it? How do you manage it in such a way that you are not just like setting yourself up for failure? I've heard Nate Herc talk about kind of 4 core failure modes when it comes to AI use. There's poisoning. Poisoning is essentially just like there's blatantly false, wrong information inside, like mixed in with a bunch of good information. So the responses from the AI are poisoned. And then there's bloat, where it's just there's way too much information. And then there's confusion, where it just like maybe there's missing information. You ask a question and then it can't find it and it struggles. And so it just comes back and gives you an answer that's wrong because it just got confused. And then there's clash, where it will find 2 competing ideas and won't understand, which one to choose from because they're competing opposite information. I have been trying to create a mental model for myself and a framework that we can use at Stack Adapt. I'm going to share a visualization. Let's see here, which is the most updated one. Yeah, I'll pull this one. I am not saying that this is right. This is just like one way I've been thinking about context architecture. So let me share my screen here, and then I'll talk it out for anybody who's listening in and can actually see. So this is rough, and made this with Claude Design. And so it's pretty raw. Anyhow, so at the top, you've got this kind of AI orchestrator, your control layer, and a layer. This essentially is your MD files or your Claude or agents.md. And this is like the map or the guide, right? I've got these broken out into 3 different types of context. There's a knowledge layer, a capability layer, a working layer. The knowledge layer is what the AI needs to know. The capability layer is what the AI is able to do. And the working layer is what the AI is doing right now. So what are you currently doing in that live task state? Within the knowledge layer, you have policy, knowledge, situational, and relationship context. Your policy context is like approved rules, non-negotiables. These are, one example maybe This is like when using AI, don't put in any type of secret keys or API information in anything that is discoverable or could be viewed online, right? Make sure that it's local and like get ignored, not visible. So that policy information. Knowledge is more stable facts, SOPs, product information. One example may be like brand guide in the marketing world. Situational context, this is like current facts, decisions, status. And this could also be like your Slack message, your email, meeting notes. I think there's more like personal context that'll be part of our discussion as well later, is like personal, company, team, sub team, and how to manage that. And then relationship context is people, roles, teams, contact data. For example, if I want to say, create an email to Chris, let him know that this project, we're going to need to have some like additional brainstorm. But if you don't have this context set up right, and for the AI to know where to find it, the question is going to say, who's Chris? Chris is my boss. It's going to say, who's Chris? And also, who do you like, how do you want me to send this email through? This is when I'm talking about people like managing and designing their harness and not even knowing it. The second that you go into your connectors and you connect like into Gmail, right? You have just pretty much told Claude that you use Gmail. Now it knows that when you say, I want to send an email, it's going to be using Gmail. It's not going to say, hey, I can see that you've got Gmail connected, but what should I send it through? Should I send it through Outlook? Should I send it through Apple Mail? Like, no, like it knows you made the connection. And in the back end, what you don't see is that's part of that, your personal harness, is that you have instructed it that when you send emails, you send through Gmail. Capability layer. Yeah, please jump in. Anytime.
Real quick on the knowledge layer, just trying to understand how you're thinking about it. So would this be like your personal instructions, like a mix of your personal instructions and like projects is how you're feeding this into AI?
Yeah, for sure. And it would probably go depending on like what you had just said, like your personal preferences.
Yeah.
And this is why like it's so important for me, at least, to really nail this down, is because my personal preferences are going to be different than team preferences and company preferences. And I don't want, let's say that we have a company repository and we're sharing that repository. One, do I want everyone to see my preferences? Like, is that private? Should that be get ignored? Should that be like not visible and it's just running local? Or should I have it stored somewhere and written in a format that other people can see? So yeah, like that would fall, those different things would fall in different places and kind of different buckets here.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I'm looking at this visual here. So like if anyone's like wants to jump in with comments, questions, please do it anytime. Capability layer, what the AI is able to do. This is pretty much instruction on if you want to give instruction on how to do things. One example is like, what tools for execution, what tools are you using? We talked about Gmail. The nuance here is the situational context may be the email that you received, but the execution context is that you are using Gmail, right? Or we're using Slack. The situational context is the Slack message itself. The execution context is where to pull messages in from Slack, right? And maybe some rules around it. Accounts, permissions, approval rules for execution, memory, going back to preferences. This is saved user or team preferences, company preferences as well. And then your environment. I think it's important for your AI to know like what time zone are you in? And like most tools will already know this. I'm assuming, actually, I would assume that it's smart enough to know what time zone you're in. Tenant, device, are you on a Mac? Are you on a PC? Runtime, I mean, that should be clear as well, especially if you're like on a Mac app, right? The desktop app. Runtime state. But this is also things I think it's important to like that you could have in here if you want to give it more personal information about, okay, this is the city that I live in, and whatever additional details to your environment. Maybe am I working from home or working from an office? Those types of things. And then your working layer, this is what the AI is doing right now. And this pretty much is just what is current and active, what you're doing like in a session or chat window. This may be like the prompt that you just gave to the AI or an artifact that you're working on in the moment. This is like what you're currently working on. So guys, that is kind of a quick view of how I'm thinking about bucketing, organizing context. I'd love to hear from you. What are you seeing? What ideas and thoughts do you have? We can poke holes in this, or just how would you improve it? Let's just open it up for discussion.
So I think this is cool. I mean, I really like the graphic. This is one of the better ones I've seen. I like how you are visually organizing everything. I like the 3 different pillars. Very much follows kind of how I look at things, especially the capacity layer. The MCPs and the ability for your AI to actually do things, I think is a big unlock for a lot of people that find AI to be really productive and get those 10x returns. People are like ultimately promising is when they start connecting their tools and letting their AI start to do things for them instead of just using it like a Google or a thought partner. A couple things I would find interesting that I have found be useful. I don't know necessarily where they fit into the model, and I feel like you may have already accounted for them. But one of them is I really like to get to quality. I think a lot of AI slop is that AI can create and do things, but it may not necessarily be as good as if a human did it. And if it's below that threshold, it's slop. If it's above that threshold, it's not. And everyone has a different bar for different things. I like to actually do research and create a grading rubric for specific things and have it so that AI can grade its own work. And I give it a bar where I say, if you're above an 80 on this, great, you passed, we can move on. Otherwise, and this is where looping comes in. Otherwise, redo what you're doing and retest until you get above this threshold. So I think that's an interesting element here where you could create like a layer that is based off of quality. This is the quality standards that we have. Another thing, it's just an interesting question that I've had, is the context of things, like almost what hat am I wearing right now? This is something that I think is interesting. I don't know where it fits into all the models and stuff, but at certain times of the day, and this might be because I'm a co-founder, I wear a lot of different hats, but there are times of the day where I'm putting on a certain hat, which means, and I love in your model, it shows that I need certain knowledge, I need certain skills, I need certain tasks, I need these certain things, but everything else you can kind of ignore because I'm wearing this hat right now. And so it's almost like the orchestration layer says, okay, great, I identified your hat, and you have a separate index of what, knowledge, connections, permissions, things like that you have access to. If I'm wearing my budgeting hat on marketing, I need access to my budget and spend and things like that. But if I'm wearing my pay-per-click or my SEO or my content creation hat, some rules may contradict each other, but in that context, in that hat, it doesn't. I think that's where like that contradiction exists. But as human beings, even inside of the English language, there's always exceptions, right? And I think that's one of the hardest things for AI is to go in and say, okay, well, except when I'm wearing this hat. When I'm wearing this hat, throw in an M dash or two, or do this or that, or use this slightly different design style or this voice or tone. And I think we need to figure out a way to add context of what hat I'm wearing to be able to kind of help narrow down the scope of what AI can do so it can accomplish that. That I'm not sure the right way of doing it, but that's always something that I don't feel like a lot of models have that I try to consider.
It's interesting. Boris Cherney, right? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but from Claude, right? He was recently on a podcast and live kind of presentation with the kind of I think the managing partner of Y Combinator. And during this session, he was talking about stripping down the claude.md file. And this freaks me out so hard, man. I should just trust it and like, I mean, trust his advice and just go and like give this a try. But specifically referring to Fable, I think it was Fable. It might have been Opus 5, but basically he was saying like, we over engineer our Claude files. And like, if you just like strip it and just like simplify it, and then he used the phrase, just let it cook. And it does freak me out a little bit to like, I do agree that you shouldn't overload your Claude MD file. I think where my mind has been on all of this as of late has been like, just use it as a router, right? Like you're just telling it where it's going to find information. And so the idea of like taking out like the map and the instructions and where to find stuff freaks me out a little bit, but I should just like go and give it a shot. But right now the thinking is this on, do you have a
That's
comment, man?
in the model a lot. Like,
So a lot of trust.
That's saying Fable is smarter than your context, which knowing myself, pretty much any model is smarter than me. But like, that's one of those things where I'm intrigued by that answer. I think it would also be fascinating to just be able to like have a button in Claude. If you're listening to this, do this. Like to have a button where I can just also have like I know they have like incognito mode, but like, let me play with a model for a little while and just say, hey, just for this one session, I want you to exclude everything and have a lot of like, but let me come back to the session and not get rid of it like incognito. Like, let me play fresh for a little bit and see where I've screwed up.
Yeah.
Kind of have fun with it.
Yeah. Agreed. If you work for Claude, give it a go.
I've got a quick question for you guys on this. So like when you're talking about the different are you guys using, when you're talking about the MD files, are you using skills to help you the Claude know the individual hats that you're wearing and try to activate those skills to leverage
100%.
the thing that you're doing? Is that how you guys are doing it right now, Dan?
Yeah, but the hard part is sometimes it's like, okay, well, I'm going to leverage this skill, but then I'm going to also pull in the bend voice and then the bend method for sales and then the this and the that.
Yeah.
And I have these absolute rules where I'm like, okay, never use an M dash, like the big one.
Yeah.
There are times where like, I wish it would, so it almost needs to know when it can overwrite itself somehow.
Okay.
So
and that's what you were talking about, some of these issues, Pete, right? Like the context clash and what you started with earlier.
yeah, Boris in that same presentation, he's like, you don't need to prompt that out anymore. Like it's gone. And I'm like, that's bull crap. Like it is still there.
The amount of times Claude says, oh, I did the scan. I found 18 M dashes that I had to rip out for you. I'm like, oh, good thing I have that.
Yeah, no, it's still there. So John, we won't go too deep into this, but 100% using skills and plugins